What happens when the most beautiful song you've ever written is one you never wanted anyone to hear? In 1994, Pearl Jam was one of the biggest bands on the planet. Their second album, Versus, had shattered sales records, and their third album, Vitalogy, was about to debut at number 1. Yet there was a song just sitting there that Eddie Vedder refused to record. Not because it wasn't good. Their producer, Brien, called it a hit the moment he heard it. That was the problem. It was too poppy, and it was too personal. So it was shelved, and even as the band was exploding, the song titled Better Man sat in the drawer, buried under the weight of everything Pearl Jam was trying not to become. So how did a song they refused to release become one of the biggest anthems of the 90s?
Waiting, watching the clock, it's 4 o'clock, it's got to stop.
It's a quiet moment, just a woman sitting waiting for her man to come home, rehearsing something she'll never say. That's all you need to know for now, because the real story behind Better Man starts long before Vitalogy, before the band, before Seattle, before Pearl Jam was even a name. It starts with Eddie Vedder, sitting in a bedroom in Southern California, trying to understand why his mother stayed with a man she didn't love. At the very beginning of the song, we have a picture of this woman practicing what she's going to say to this man when he gets home. She's finally going to give him a piece of her mind, tell him how unhappy she is.
He opens the door, she rolls over, pretends to sleep as he looks her over.
But she doesn't. Instead, he comes into their room, and she just rolls over in bed and pretends to be asleep. The story of Better Man is the story of Eddie Vedder. The woman in that song is his mother, and the man she's waiting for is a man Vedder thought was his biological father, but turned out not to be. Eddie was born Edward Louis Severson III, but the name didn't stick, not because he changed it, but because no one told him the truth. His parents split before he turned 2. His mother, Karen Lee Vedder, remarried a man named Peter Mueller, and Eddie was raised believing Mueller was his father. He had his last name and spent the first decade of his life in Chicago, in a foster home his parents ran.
It was in Chicago, so there was older kids and African-American kids and Irish kids, and in the basement we had a turntable, and they had like Sly Family Stone and all the Motown stuff, and even like the Jackson 5, because then there was a kid who was like 8 and I was 6 and he could sing. And I just started singing to those records.
They moved from Chicago to San Diego in the mid-70s. His mom bought him a guitar at 12, and somewhere between Beach Breaks and the Who albums, music became the only reliable outlet. By high school, the family started a fracture. His mom left her second husband and moved back to Chicago. Eddie stayed behind, still living with the man he believed was his father. Years later, his mother returned with a confession. She came out with a specific purpose, he told Rolling Stone in 1993, to tell me that this guy wasn't my father. I remember at the time I was like, I know he's not my father, he's a fucking asshole. And she said, oh Eddie, he's really not your father. His real father had died of multiple sclerosis. Eddie had met him just once as a kid and was told he was a family friend. Looking back on the experience, Vedder seemed to have mixed emotions. On the one hand, he was relieved.
When my mom told me that this guy wasn't my father and it was somebody else, it was a shock. But I was so grateful in a way. I mean, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, thank God.
But there was also the pain of not knowing your biological father and the confusion that came with being told one of the most fundamental truths in your life was actually a lie.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, really, not having known him or getting the opportunity to know him. Of course, I think just deep down, I just would have wanted to know just, if he loved me and how much,
It's this emotional tension that sits at the heart of Better Man, and it's the reason the song is so powerful.
Memories back when she was smooth and strong and waiting for the world to come along. Swear she'd do it, now she swears it's gone.
It's the universal feeling of regret. Eddie's mother looking back at her youth as a confident, strong woman, optimistic for what life would have to offer her. Instead, she feels betrayed by this man she initially loved and believed in. By the time Eddie is 15, he's already living on his own, supporting himself while attending high school.
The famous story was you went to your teachers and the teachers were complaining about your grades, and you said you opened up your backpack and you showed them your bills.
Yeah, Mr. Moreno said, you know, you missed another test. This is reality. And I pulled out my bills. I said, no, sir, this is my reality.
In 1988, he joined Bad Radio, a San Diego band chasing the funk rock trend. One of the first things Eddie brought to the band was a set of lyrics about a woman burdened by a toxic relationship. A woman who lies and says she's in love with this guy because she can't find a better man. But by the time Better Man was becoming a centerpiece in their set, Eddie was already starting to drift away creatively. In 1990, he happened to play in the same rec basketball league with Jack Irons, the former drummer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Knowing Eddie was a singer looking for something different, Irons handed him a demo tape from some guys in Seattle. Vedder took it home, surfed that morning, and wrote 3 songs in his head while paddling out. He recorded vocals that night for Alive, Once, and Footsteps. The tape got sent back up north. A few weeks later, he was on a plane to audition. It just so happened that during that same week in Seattle, that same band he auditioned for was part of a one-off project with Chris Cornell. Cornell was recording a tribute album for Andrew Wood, his friend and former frontman of Mother Love Bone. Cornell saw Eddie watching the recording from the sidelines, instinctively singing a low harmony quietly to himself as Cornell kept doing vocal takes. Cornell loved it, added Eddie to the background vocals, and then handed him a verse. The project would become Temple of the Dog, and that track, Hunger Strike, became Vedder's first recorded lead vocal, and according to him, one of his favorites.
And it's on the table, the mouths are choking, but I'm going hungry.
In 1991, Pearl Jam blew up. Their first album, 10, became one of the best-selling albums of the 90s and ended up being certified 13 times platinum. Vedder, though, was a reluctant superstar.
It can be a scary thing to sell that many records because then people start being cynical with you. Now you're some kind of big thing and they don't open up to you in the same way. I think our band is a small foreign film. It's not a blockbuster American movie. It's not Terminator 2.
As Pearl Jam got back into the studio for their second album, Versus, producer Brendan O'Brien got wind of this shelved Better Man track of Eddie's and immediately flagged it. This was the one, a kind of track that cuts through radio static and gets played 10 times a day. But Vedder didn't want to record it. He didn't even want to talk about it. The subject was just too personal. For Eddie, it's the classic battle every songwriter has to wrestle with. What do you owe the people in your life when you start turning them into lyrics? So the song sat. It didn't make it onto Verses, but a year later when they started tracking Vitalogy, O'Brien was back as producer and floated the idea of pulling Better Man back out. This time, he had a unique way of convincing Eddie to do it.
We finally recorded it, and the way we did it was they played it live. They would play it live at their shows. We had tape machines there and everything, and I recorded all the shows. So they did 2 shows and a sound check. So there were 3 takes, 3 versions of Better Man. Put those 3 versions together.
The version that made the album is lean. It's almost quiet, which makes it land harder, like someone whispering the truth into a microphone. Still, though, Vedder was hesitant. Part of it was his and the band's reluctance to go pop, even though they were already hugely popular.
The story goes that the record producer said to you, Ed, this is a great song. It's going to be a hit song. And you heard hit song and you said, fuck you, I'm not putting this out then.
I made a comment early on about how, really the first day on the job, they played it. I said, that sounds great. That's a hit. That's awesome. And everybody just kind of goes, ugh. And I just went, oh, I have said the wrong thing.
Vedder had no intention of making a hit, and he certainly didn't want Better Man, which was such a personal song, to be that hit. Pearl Jam was coming off the heels of the hugely popular single Jeremy, where MTV demanded edits of the controversial original video they sent in. After making changes, audiences misread the story of the song Eddie originally wrote, and it left a bitter taste in his mouth. So when O'Brien called Better Man a hit, Vedder was understandably skeptical.
Music videos, it turns into kind of a Hollywood thing, I don't know what happened, but it turned into something way different where people were spending $250,000 for a video and that was the norm. I don't know what happened.
So you have a few factors behind Eddie's reluctance to release Better Man. The fact that it's about his mother's dysfunctional relationship, the fact that he wrote it so long ago, and the fact that he didn't want to make a pop song. But he did, finally, and it's become one of their most iconic records.
She don't want to leave this way. She feeds him. Yeah, that's why she'll be back again.
She's not staying because she's afraid. She's staying because she made a promise. Leaving would cause fallout for both families, and she's trying to spare them from the consequences. And the man she lives with needs her. She needs to be needed. So she stays. In the end, Vedder doesn't blame his mother. He never did. He sympathizes with her and loves her despite the fact that she hid his biological father from him. But he's clearly seen her struggle, seen his stepfather take her strength and her boldness away. That's what Better Man is. It's a document of erosion, a portrait of someone who stays because they have to, because they're out of options. Fans connected with it instantly, not because it was loud, but because it said something they recognized. People sang along with tears in their eyes.
Waiting.
Better Man became as popular as it did because of how universal the message is. And for Vedder, this is the point of lyrics in general. They don't need to be explained. For Eddie, over-explaining can ruin a song, and he loves how music can become a personal experience.
A lot of these lyrics have been open to interpretation and people have taken them, they've become part owners. If I were to just explain literally what the song would be about, then that excludes them from being part of it themselves.
Better Man was never meant to be a hit, but it became one anyway. And Eddie had to watch as something deeply personal turned into a song that belonged to everyone else. But over time, Eddie started to see what the song meant to people, not as a chart-topping hit, but as something true. How it related to people's lives, how it helped them leave a toxic relationship, or just to feel a little less alone. Maybe that's the strange redemption of Better Man, that a song written in isolation became a kind of connection. At first, Eddie resisted sharing his pain, his memory, his anger, written from the perspective of a kid who just wanted his mother to leave a bad relationship. But something changed when the song left his hands. What began as a son's heartbreak eventually became a man's gratitude. It turned judgment into understanding. And in the end, what started as one boy's grief became a tribute to strength he hadn't yet learned to recognize.